I'm Mercedes Stephenson, and this is the West Block Politics, Perspectives, and Players. It's Sunday, December 6th. I'm Mercedes Stephenson, and this is the West Block. COVID cases continue to skyrocket across the country. All this unfolding as the federal government projects the deficit will be the highest since the Second World War. It has skyrocketed to over $300 billion due to the pandemic response. And based on the economic update last week, spending will not stop anytime soon. Much of the pandemic recovery, however, will rely on having a COVID-19 vaccine. The UK has just approved the Pfizer vaccine, but Health Canada isn't there just yet. Information is rapidly evolving on this, and so far Canada has no concrete date for when we can expect a COVID-19 vaccine here on Canadian soil. Joining me now with the latest is Deputy Prime Minister and Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland. Thanks so much for coming on the show, Minister. The first question I wanted to ask you is not one about finance or really about a specific file, but about the politics in general in our country right now. When you look across the country, we're seeing more and more backlash against the restrictions. We're seeing people who are raising concerns about the vaccine, people who are angry about the lockout, when businesses are shut down for public health reasons. Are you concerned that the pandemic is increasingly becoming a wedge issue or a culture war rather than a public health crisis?
Yes, of course I'm concerned, Mercedes, but, and maybe this reflects my essentially glass half full personality. At the end of the day, I see more collaboration and cooperation and people all being prepared to do the right thing for themselves and their neighbors. And I see a lot of reasons for optimism, and I'm going to give you three really quick ones. One is Halifax restaurateurs who actually said, please close us down because we're seeing a rise in cases and we want you to close us down so that our community can be safe. I salute those people. Second is all of our healthcare workers. I had an extremely moving and humbling conversation this week with some of the amazing people who work at Surrey Memorial Hospital. And, you know, these are people who are working not 24-hour shifts, but more than 24-hour shifts. They're working in really dangerous, and I would personally find them to be scary circumstances. And they just keep on going. And there are thousands and thousands of people across the country doing that. And then the final group of people who really inspire me are our children. Very occasionally, I'm able to be in my own house and take my little son to school. And when I see him and the other elementary school kids, like faithfully put on their masks and go in and they wear their masks all day long, I am so proud of those kids. And there are kids like that all across the country. So overall, Mercedes, I feel we're doing a good job as a country. We do have to buckle down a little bit more, but I have confidence we can do it.
You've had a really big week, and you always have big weeks with the number of files you juggle, but in particular with the long-awaited fall fiscal update, because we didn't have a budget. In it, you announced a lot of supports for individuals, a lot of supports for businesses that are very direct. You also announced $100 billion in stimulus spending that is expected once the economy starts to recover. You said as a part of that spending, there was going to be guardrails in place to tell you when to turn it up and when to turn it down, things like the employment rate and total number of hours worked, but you haven't disclosed what the numbers are, and you called them fiscal guardrails. When I think of guardrails on a highway, I think they stand up because they're staked to something. So what are the particular numbers that are your stakes here, and have you figured that out yet?
So first of all, let me just be clear that when it comes to the growth plan, we said that we intend to spend between 3 and 4% of GDP. So roughly between 70 and 100 billion. So it's not for sure 100 billion, it's up to 100 billion. And in our fiscal projections, we were very clear to offer a lot of different scenarios because there's just so much uncertainty out there. And I thought it was important to be transparent with Canadians that we will need a growth plan, and to also be transparent about the fact that we need to let things settle down a little bit more. We need to conquer COVID before we know for sure how much money it's going to be. On the fiscal guardrails, you are totally right, and they are about jobs, jobs, jobs. And we are going to offer more details and more specifics on those fiscal guardrails as we unveil the plan. You're right, if you have guardrails on the road, they need to be physical and anchored to something. Once we start driving down the road, let me assure you, there are going to be some very clear, anchored, material, concrete guardrails there.
Minister, try one more time, Deputy Prime Minister. Deputy Prime Minister Freeland, your government signed a contract with a company called CanSino for vaccines. We've since reported that Canada's national security agencies had warned that there were serious security concerns with this company. That vaccine program also fell through. When we're in the current situation we are with China, why did the Canadian government sign that contract instead of sinking those funds into the many other diverse vaccines that you're pursuing? And were you aware of the warnings from national security agencies about this company?
You know, when it comes to the effort to get vaccines for Canadians, and this is an effort that has been fierce and intense behind the scenes since the spring, my approach and the approach of our government has been, when it comes to the health of Canadians, leave no stone unturned, do whatever it takes to support Canadians. And I feel very comfortable that is the right approach. The other thing that I think is really important for Canadians to appreciate is we have been really successful at acquiring the world's most diverse, most robust vaccine portfolio. It has 7 vaccines in it. We have bought enough vaccines to vaccinate to have 10 doses for every single Canadian. So we have our bases covered there. We pursued every option. That was the right thing. And then I do want to say one thing which is personal to me, Mercedes, when it comes to China. And that is, when I was foreign minister, I worked hard on the cases of Michael Kovrig and Michael Spavor. I got to know the families of these brave Canadians. And it is totally unacceptable to me that they are not here in Canada. Canada's priority is always going to be to get these brave Canadians home.
Are you hopeful with the news out of the United States that the U.S. Justice Department may be negotiating to send Meng Wanzhou back to China, and that might trigger the release of the 2 Michaels?
That's a case, as you know, Mercedes, which is before the courts. And it's a sensitive case where the well-being and the lives of 2 Canadians are very much at stake. So I'm really sorry. I used to be a journalist. I believe in answering questions, but that's a question that I can't answer. I'm sorry.
Have you had any reassurances from the incoming Biden administration that this will be a priority for them?
The Prime Minister has already a great relationship with President-elect Biden. Of course, the United States only has one government at a time, and it's appropriate to work with the government of the moment. But the Prime Minister and really our whole government, we have a really good relationship with President-elect Biden and his team. And they know, as do American political leaders across political lines, know that this is a priority for Canada. We've had great support in the House, in the Senate, for Canada, for Michael Kovrig and Michael Spavor. We've had some bipartisan votes and support there, and that's important.
Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland, thank you for joining us. We wish you and your family well.
Thank you very much, Mercedes, and same goes to you and to all Canadians. Let's stay safe.